Agile or Waterfall? Whenever we start a new project, one of the things we have to consider is what's the approach that we're going to use. So, are we going to use Waterfall or Agile or something else? It's worth keeping in mind that not every organization is equipped to just flex between doing Waterfall and Agile. They might just have one in-house style, and it may all be Waterfall, or it may be one flavor of Agile. But when you start a project, you're the project manager, you're responsible. So it's up to you to find the best approach for delivering your project. But that brings us back to the central question, doesn't it? What is the right way to deliver your project? Well, I guess to understand that, we need to go back to the methodologies and have a closer look at them and try to understand exactly what it is that they offer and how they're different. Okay, I'm not going to waste your time with the history of project management or the evolution of Agile. Instead, let's just have a look at the key differences you'll spot between the two methods when you actually use them. Waterfall has clearly defined sequential phases that run through the life cycle of the project, from initiation to planning to building and testing and handing over and closing. You get requirements early on and you know pretty much what your target output's going to be. But change can be slow during the course of the project, and if you miss any of those requirements early on, it can be very expensive to correct for it later on. Following this method will give you forecasts for time and costs and benefits. Forecasts that, like all forecasts, are likely to be wrong almost as soon as you write them. But organizational leaders and managers are comfortable with forecasts. Waterfall is entrenched. It is considered to be the default way to deliver projects. Now, Agile has a focus on fast delivery and getting value out very quickly. They take a number of the activities that were mentioned in the waterfall phases and they do them repeatedly, rapidly, producing in quick succession lots of bits of value that get released every few weeks. Rather than taking requirements at the start of the project and then disappearing for a number of months or years, they're constantly talking to customers, constantly updating and refreshing their priorities. This has a consequence of making Agile projects very easy to adapt to changing priorities and changing circumstances. It does make it difficult, though, to predict on a large design exactly when it's going to be finished and how much it's going to cost. From my observation, and this is purely anecdotal, business leaders who haven't worked in Agile projects seem to be suspicious or even skeptical of the merits of the Agile approach. So Agile is not the default way of delivering projects yet. So which should you choose for your project? Well, you may be leaning more one way or the other by now, but rather than guessing, I've called in an expert and decided to ask them. I had a call with project management consultant Guy Thorpe from ValueKey and asked him, how do you choose which method to use?
How do you decide on which project methodology you should use for your project?
For me, this question really comes down to two words. It depends. And I think those two words are really, really powerful, right? Naturally, when someone asks us that question, we want to come up with a solution and we want to give a really good answer and we say, this is the way to do it. But actually, when you say it depends, what it creates is an environment or an opportunity to ask more questions. And what it does is it opens up a whole bunch of different things. So it depends, how well known is the outcome that we're looking for? Have we done this type of project before? Are we really, really clear? Is it a simple or is it a really complex project that we're going to be working on? So when you say it depends, and then you follow up with a whole bunch of new questions, it allows you to start to explore the context of the project, right? And context is key, particularly when it comes to these sorts of things around delivery method or delivery approach, those sorts of things. And as you start to unwrap that a little bit more, you discover all the sorts of things and the types of things that the project will be going through, and then you can work out the best way to tailor the best delivery method or approach to it. And I kind of like the analogy, when you've got a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right? But when you've got like a whole suite of different project delivery methods you can use, you don't necessarily have to just use the same one. You can use a variety of different methods. You could be using, I'm a particular fan for hybrid delivery. So I quite like utilizing design thinking here at the start of this to enable you to discover what the problem is that you're actually trying to solve, and then working through that a little bit more. And then coupling it with a range of other different delivery methods that come with that. So I think, we are all too often driven to go into the process of which one delivery method should I use? Well, I actually think about, let's figure out what the context of the project is. And then let's think about what combination of delivery methods would actually best suit the solving of this problem or delivering of this opportunity. And I think, we've become fixated on being in one delivery method or another. And it's created this whole conversation and discussion around pitting Waterfall predictive methods against Agile. And we spend so much time debating which one's better or which one's worse. Actually, they both have their place. They're both valuable, they're both important, and they both deliver outcomes for customers and clients that we're working with and end users. So I think it's a case of being able to figure out which is best for that particular problem. And I think, if we get to the point where we can actually get skilled enough to have a multitude of different delivery methods in our kit bag, then we can select the right one and go down that route for using that on a project. So when you come back to how do you go about selecting the best delivery method? Well, I think context is key. Ask questions around why do we do it? What's the problem we're solving? Have we done this before? How complex and involved it is. Then think about the delivery approach that would best suit. So is it this one? Is it that one? Is it a combination of delivery methods that we could work from? And then once you've got that, it's then working with your project team and your project sponsor to make sure that they're comfortable with that particular delivery method that you're going to be using on that project.
Guy's advice there was to spend more time at the start investigating and really get to grips with what exactly you're being asked to deliver. Understand what's being asked for before diving in and making a decision on your approach, and keeping an open mind towards using some sort of a hybrid approach. That makes sense, and it got me curious to see exactly how many other people are already doing this. So I ran a poll on LinkedIn and I asked my connections, what method are you using for your current or latest project? Waterfall, Agile, or a hybrid? And the results surprised me. About 70% reported that their current or latest project was a hybrid approach, with about 18% saying they were doing pure Waterfall and about 13% saying they were doing pure Agile. I know it was only 80 votes, so the call for action today is for you to connect with me on LinkedIn so that my polls can have greater statistical significance. But the big takeaway here is not to ask yourself whether you should be doing Agile or Waterfall, but maybe the big question is how much to do with each. So now you probably hate my guts, because rather than pushing you down a nice, comfortable, narrow path towards a single methodology to go and learn and focus on for your whole career, I've just opened the whole thing up. So go and study Waterfall, study Agile, study design thinking, whatever. But before you rush off and start booking training courses, take a look at this video over here about project management certification. It may help you, and it may even save you a little money.